All right, so we just did LPs and 8-tracks. Now we're on to cassettes. Yeah, well, cassette players, music players that played cassettes, and all part of this music player series. And I just happened to find some that I had laying around. Anyway, the old cases, they get scratched up like crazy. You can barely read them, but here's your old cassette. And the first ones I remember were the I think it was a tape deck. Yeah, came on top of it was for the home use, and it fit right on top of your receiver, amplifier, tuner, whatever, and about the same size as the not as deep, but it was about the same size as your typical receiver. And it was a while. Well, it was a while later that I remember that they came out with these. It was a tape recorder or player, tape recorder and player, but it was kind of long, black, about that wide, that deep, maybe not that quite. But you sat on a tabletop or desk or something, and you could always record yourself doing an interview, conversation, especially if you were, you had an aging parent, grandparent that you wanted to just get some of those memories and ask them questions, interview, and but that was great. And then you could always buy these blank ones and record those. I think you may even put the cassettes, depending on what's kind of, another episode, the answer machine. You could take the cassette out and put it in that little player recorder, and you'd be set. And here's some clear ones, just different brands, but I actually have stuff on these. That's why I still have them. And I did find them in the attic. I don't know if they play anything, but not that I have anything to play them on anymore, but they may not be any good. So yes, I did find some of these in the attic. And but after the little player recorder that you I remember you had another episode too, maybe coming down the road, but you could buy one of those at your local store that no longer exists, the Radio Shack. Radio Shack, yeah. You could always get kind of cool stuff there, but no more, gone by the wayside. Order everything online now. But yeah, shoot down a Radio Shack and grab you one of those tape recorder players. And if you know, you know. I'm sure somebody probably still remember those. And then they came out with the portable players. That actually clipped to your belt, pop your little cassette in of your favorite artist there, take it with you, pop your little headphones on. That was big in the 80s, especially in the movies. I think one of them might have been old Back to the Future when he sneaks in the bedroom and puts them on his head there and cranks up Van Halen or Eddie Van Halen doing a solo and pretends to be the Martian or an alien's going to melt his brain. Oh, and then say that for a second. And but yeah, there was different brand names of those portable players, but the one that was most popular was the Sony Walkman. And I think that was the first one that really kind of like that Kleenex brand that gets branded, all facial tissue gets branded Kleenex, but the Walkman got, for the portable cassette players got branded, oh yeah, you get you a Walkman, that kind of deal. But it was great. You could always take it around everywhere with you and listen to it, riding a bike, if anybody still does that anymore. And yeah, so good old days. And then they came into the home, your portable jam box, boom boxes. You know, see the guy walking down the street, popping the cassette. I just so happened to find one, not in my attic. I actually had to borrow this one, but you could have the detachable speakers too. But yeah, just pop open your door there, take your cassette, pop it right in, start playing. And if it messed up, which it did sometimes, because you always had to have some of these around. And they'd be in the house, your bedroom, wherever you had your little, even your cassette deck. Usually it was those, or in the car when the cassette players finally hit your car, truck, van, whatever, SUV, whatever you had at the time. But you always had to have a number 2 pencil. Why? Because a lot of times that sucker would eat it, and it would be, the loop would be hanging in the floor, and you'd have to grab your number 2 pencil real quick and wind it back up, get the slack out of it. And you're like, oh, well, I might have. All right, I gotta get the slack back. There we go. Get that one out. Otherwise, if I do ever get a player again, that one might be a problem later. So anyway, yeah, you just get that slack out of it and get it real tight, or you had to rewind it so the tape wasn't hanging down, or the material. Yeah, the tape actually wasn't looped or all just bundled up there, and you had a hot mess. Believe me. But yeah, that was always great. And if you were if you timed it right, if you had it in your bedroom and you were listening to the radio, you could actually put in a blank cassette and hit record. You might catch a little bit of the DJ, but you could actually record your favorite song. Might have done that. Some of you may have done it too, but I did that, trying to catch it just right. Oh, and then try to stop it when the song was about ending before the DJ kicked in. But anyway, good times, detachable speakers. Yeah. That happens a lot too. They would always break, and the case would fall apart, and that's why they got scratched a lot. But these players in your home, the newer ones came with a CD player, which I'll be going over next. But the first ones just came out with cassette decks on them. But take it out to your local park there and take it with you and press your favorite song and jam while you're doing whatever outdoor activity was. But they were real popular in that movie, I think, breakdancing, because breakdancing was big back then. And you'd always see them, the real big ones, and they were carrying them on their shoulders and roller skating. But yeah, I don't know if I carried it on my shoulder unless I was mocking. Remember roller skate? Huh. Probably still remember that back in the day. Yep. Because there was no internet. We all had fun, didn't we? Roller skating, listening to music, going outside, riding our bikes, man. Yeah. Anyway. And then I believe that's it. Because about this time, of course, they got into the cassette decks were put in the radios later in the automobiles, and that came after the 8-tracks. So, and that was about it. Then we move on to compact disc players or CD players, and that's coming up next. Next, CDs. All right, so let's see. All right, we've talked about LPs, 8-tracks, cassettes. Now, let's move on to CDs, compact disc players. Sorry, I don't want to shine that in your face there. I remember the first CD compact disc player that I remember came on top of your receiver amplifier. It was like a first gen DVD player. It hadn't made it into vehicles yet, and they hadn't made it portable or any of your in-home stereo systems. This one I remember, about the size of a DVD player, fit on your receiver, and I think mine was a Sony. And I remember cranking that bad boy up, and I was pretty impressed. I was like, at the digital quality sound, a little bit better than the cassettes. However, if you were rocking out to your favorite tune and you jumped up and you skipped and, you know, took it a minute to play back. And then after that came the Sony Walkman portable disc player. The first gens didn't have the anti-skip that I remember. I know this next gen came out and had the anti-skip, and you were thankful for that, because the first one, I think one of the ones that I might have had the second generation portable disc player, CD player. And no matter if you set that sucker on the dash, on the seat, you hit a bump, skip. You can lay it on the table, skip. And for those of you that had them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And no matter, it's like you took them out and you couldn't find the case either, and they were always scratched. So then we hung it on the rearview mirror. You know you did it. Don't deny it. I may have done it. I can't remember. But then we went for, we had the Sony Walkman, the portable CD players, and they didn't have a belt clip either. So it was just, it was crazy. I don't remember ever having it. So you had to carry it everywhere. And it seemed like it always skipped. And it ate batteries like crazy. Anyway, about that time, we have it started making its way into your vehicles, your cars, your trucks, your vans, and whatever came out at the time, early SUVs. And they had an adapter that plugged into that portable CD player that went into the cassette player, because it hasn't quite made the combo unit from the CD and the cassette hasn't quite made it into vehicles yet, unless you spend some money, maybe had them in the luxury cars. I don't remember, but I know I didn't have that luxury. I had to buy the adapter that fitted in my cassette player and plugged into my portable CD player that was either in my seat or on the dash, and might have warped a few CDs on the dash. But anyway, the seat, get hit a good pothole or a bump, skip. Then later they finally came out in the vehicles, and they did make it into vehicles, and had the combo units. They had the CD player and the cassette players. And then later they came out with just CD players. And then a lot of times you could load in one little slot. You could load 5 or 6 discs in there. Those were for those lucky select few people that could afford those higher end stereo systems, the higher end quality cars. But I got stuck with the old portable CD player. Well, now I still had the one at home, but then they came out in the little nice little home units. Then they had the single disc with little boom boxes, little radio players, attachable speakers in your house. And then they came out with the 5-disc player. Man, yeah. And you could hear it select, and gosh, that was so loud. And the first models of those came out as well on the that fit on your receiver and your amplifier and for your home. They didn't make it in vehicles till later, but those actually came out before the other ones. The other ones that for their home unit, the little smaller not portable, but the smaller in-home that you had in your bedroom, had the detachable speakers that you rocked out to and jump up and down and make it skip. But who could forget you were changing the disc? God awful noise. Or it would not do it and just wouldn't even. For those of you that had them, you know what I'm talking about. All right, moving on. Let's see. We need to put on the cassette player. Yeah, the adapter. And I think that was about it. But compact disc players, CDs. I thought I had pretty good quality sound until you scratched them. But you could always, because I remember computers came out too, and you could always, not saying that you would, but you're not supposed to make copies of them. But there were backups for your own use, right? Sorry, man. Excuse me. That was annoying. But yeah, when the computers came around, the software, you could borrow it from your buddy or your friend or make copies. But they were for yourself because they were backups, right? Right. Because those ones that were scratched, you had to have a backup in case because you always never could find the case and sleeves or whatever you put them in and throw them in the car somewhere, right? Right. Because making pirated copies of CDs is bad, right? But anyway, so we talked about, yes, LPs, 8 tracks, cassettes, CDs, and now let's move on to the MP3 players. All right, finally, last part of the music player series, MP3 players. Came out late 90s. I think 98. First one was South Korea, I believe, somewhere. I can't remember. I'll post it for you. The ones I remember, especially the most popular one, came out, yeah, late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere around in there. I happen to have one. Hold on. See if you remember this bad boy. The iPod Classic came out early 2000, about 2001, I think. Again, I'll check of it. This one, 30 gig. And I just happen to have it stuffed in my drawer somewhere. I don't know why I was saying, but I think they're making a comeback now. But definitely needs a new battery. But yeah, MP3 players. And they also had, I think a few years later, in about 2005, maybe, they came out with the iPod Nano. Actually, that may have came out earlier. Because the first one, the iPod Classic, was definitely not 30 gigs. It was not hardly at all, but still held quite a bit of songs on it. But I think this one is a later model, but you can actually watch videos on it. I think, I'm not sure, but Apple definitely was the most popular, but there was definitely offshoots of different brands. But MP3 players, select a song on it, easily fit in your pocket compared to older, the Sony Walkman, either cassette players or other any kind of portable disc players. When this came along, this definitely revolutionized the industry. It was compact, small, pretty good battery life too, but you could fit thousands of songs on it. The catch is you had to go through, I think, Apple iTunes. You could put your own on there, but through another player, but sometimes it didn't like that as much, if I remember correctly. But this one by far was, in my opinion, was the most popular. But good old MP3 players, as they called them, came out in late 90s, but early 2000s when you actually first saw the actual portable ones that you could fit in your hands. And of course, then they went all that kind of a format, that style on the computers. And now we have streaming services and don't hardly get to keep your own music unless you want CDs and you put them on there and try to put them on yourself. But again, they didn't like it that much. They wanted you to pay for that, download that. I think it was 99 cents. And not all musicians participated in that. So Anyway, but that's it. MP3 players. That is the last part of our series on music players. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I took you back and had some good memories with that. I really enjoyed doing this. I know the second part's a little long, but thanks for staying with me and hanging in there. And please be sure to like and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you next time on What's in the Attic. Take care.